She thought he was just a poor crippled beggar. She gave him food every single day, even when she barely had enough for herself. But one morning, everything changed. Who was this man? Why had he chosen her? And what secret had he been hiding all along? Sit back and discover the powerful and emotional journey of a young black woman whose kindness would change her life forever. This is the story of a young woman named Amara and a crippled man everyone called Uncle Red. The man people mocked, avoided, and laughed at. Amara was just 24 years old. She sold home-cooked soul food in a tiny wooden shack by the roadside in South Dallas. Her stall was made from old plywood and rusted tin sheets. It sat under a huge tree where people came to eat during lunch breaks. She didn't have much. Her slippers were cracked. Her dress had patches. Her hair was usually tied up in a scarf because she couldn't afford salon visits. But her smile was brighter than sunshine. Even when her legs ached or her hands burned from cooking all morning, she greeted every customer with warmth. "Afternoon, sir. You're welcome," she would say, wiping sweat from her brow with her sleeve. Every morning before the city even woke up, she was already at work, boiling rice, slow-cooking red beans, frying plantains. Her hands moved quickly, but her heart moved slowly, heavy with a silent sadness. Amara had no family left. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was a teenager. Since then, she lived alone in a one-room back unit behind someone's house. No electricity, no running water, just her, a prayer candle, and her dreams. One sweltering afternoon, as Amara wiped down the old wooden bench outside her food shack, her friend Miss Lala walked past balancing a basket of greens. "Amara," she said, half laughing, "why you always smiling when you struggling just like the rest of us?" Amara smiled again, soft but strong. "'Cause crying won't put no food in my pot, Miss Lala." Miss Lala laughed and walked away, but her words stuck in Amara's heart. It was true. She didn't have much, but even with her little, she shared. She fed folks even when they couldn't pay. She didn't know it yet, but that simple kindness was about to change her entire life. Every afternoon, like clockwork, something strange happened outside her stall. From the corner of the road, a crippled beggar would slowly roll in, his squeaky old wheelchair grinding against the broken pavement. Creak, creak, creak. People walking by would laugh. Some would cover their noses. "Lord, here he come again," one teenage boy scoffed. The man's legs were wrapped in old bandages. His jeans were ripped at the knees. His shirt hung loose and dirty over his bony chest. His skin was darkened by dust. His lips were dry. His eyes were weary. Some said he smelled. Others said he was crazy. But Amara never looked away. She called him Uncle Red. That afternoon, the Texas sun blazed above them like fire. Uncle Red pushed himself beside her stall and stopped. Amara looked at him and said gently, "You came back? Uncle Red, you didn't eat yesterday." Uncle Red looked down. His voice was low and raspy. "I was too weak to come. I haven't eaten in 2 days." Amara looked at her table. Only one plate of red beans and fried yams remained. That was her dinner. She paused, just for a second. Then, without saying a word, she picked up the plate and set it in front of him. "Here. Eat," she said. Uncle Red stared at the food, then at her. "You giving me your last plate again?" Amara nodded. "I can always cook again when I get home." His hands trembled as he picked up the spoon. His eyes glistened, but no tears fell. He simply bowed his head and began to eat, slowly. People walking by stared. "Amara, why you always feed that beggar?" a woman asked. Amara replied, "If it was me in that chair, wouldn't I pray somebody fed me too?" Uncle Red returned every afternoon, but he never once begged. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't stretch out his hands. He never asked for money or food. He would simply roll to the same corner beside Amara's stall and sit quietly in his old rusty wheelchair, head bowed, hands resting on his lap. One of the wheels leaned sideways like it might break off any minute. He looked like a man who the world had forgotten, but Amara never forgot him. Whether it was steaming hot jollof rice, spicy black-eyed peas, or buttery cornbread, she always found something for him. And she gave it with a smile that reached all the way to her tired eyes. That day the heat was brutal. Amara had just served a pair of school kids in matching uniforms when she turned and saw him again. Uncle Red, waiting quietly in his spot. The bandages around his legs were even older now. His shirt hung in tatters. But still he said nothing. He never even looked up. Amara scooped a hot plate of rice into a plastic bowl, added 2 pieces of meat, and gently carried it to him. "Uncle Red," she said softly, kneeling beside him, "your food's ready." He looked up slowly, his eyes dull with weariness, but when they landed on her they softened. "You always remember me," he said. Amara placed the bowl on the low stool next to his wheelchair. "Even if the whole world forgets you," she said, "I won't." Just then, a sleek black SUV rolled up and stopped right in front of her stall. Its engine purred like a lion. The car door opened slowly and a man stepped out. He was tall and broad-shouldered. His skin was smooth and deep brown, his beard lined perfectly. He wore a clean white shirt and tailored black slacks. His shoes gleamed like mirrors. Everything about him said money, power. Amara stood quickly and wiped her hands on her apron. "Good afternoon, sir," she said respectfully. "Good afternoon," the man replied, his voice deep and calm, but his eyes weren't on her. They were locked. On Uncle Red? He didn't blink. He didn't move. He just stared. Uncle Red had frozen too. The spoon was still in his hand, halfway to his mouth. The man tilted his head slightly like he was trying to recognize something. Then suddenly he looked away and turned to Amara. "Please, 1 plate of jollof rice," he said. "With meat." Amara moved quickly, scooped the rice, and handed it to him. As he accepted the bowl, his eyes slid back to Uncle Red one last time. Something in his expression looked unsettled, like he'd seen a ghost. He said nothing more. He got into his car, closed the door, and drove off. The next morning, Amara rose early like always. She lit her charcoal stove, boiled the rice, cleaned her little table. The sun was rising golden over the street. She smiled faintly and whispered to herself, "Any minute now, Uncle Red will roll in." But an hour passed, then another. No squeaking wheels, no Uncle Red. By noon, her heart was pounding. She stepped outside and looked down both ends of the street. "Where is he?" she asked aloud, her voice trembling. She walked over to Miss Lala, who was arranging tomatoes on her stall nearby. "Auntie, did you see Uncle Red today?" Amara asked. Miss Lala chuckled. "Child, maybe he rolled off to another corner. Man got no legs, what you worried for?" Amara didn't laugh. Her hands clutched the hem of her apron. She asked 2 little boys selling cold water in sachets, "Did y'all see the old man in the wheelchair today?" They both shook their heads and ran off. She asked the motorcycle guy who parked across the road, "Sir, you see Uncle Red this morning?" The man spat on the sidewalk and shrugged. Maybe he tired of sitting in one place, or maybe he gone for good. Amara's chest felt like it had been tied with ropes. She walked back to her stall and sat on the wooden bench beside the rice pot. She stared at the empty spot where Uncle Red always sat. Her eyes didn't leave that spot the entire day. 2 more days passed. No sign of him. No creaking wheels. No quiet voice. Amara served customers, but she couldn't smile like before. Even the rich, spicy scent of her jollof made her nauseous. She barely ate. Her thoughts swirled like smoke. Did something happen? Was he hurt? Was he gone forever? That night, she sat in the darkness of her little room behind the shop. She held the last plastic bowl she had served him with. She stared at it like it held answers. Uncle Red never missed a day, she whispered. Not even in the rain. Not even when he looked sick. So why now? She stood up, walked to the tiny wooden window, and opened it. A cold breeze whispered in, her eyes filled with tears. She wasn't just worried anymore, she was scared. Something felt wrong. Very wrong, And deep inside her, in the place where dreams and warnings live, she knew Uncle Red wasn't just missing. Something had happened. It was the fourth day. Amara sat quietly in her little food stall, barely speaking. The pot of rice simmered beside her. She sliced onions with a slow, distracted rhythm. Smoke curled upward from the charcoal stove, but her eyes stayed on the road, watching for a man who hadn't come back. Then, a black car pulled up. Not the same one from before. This one was newer, sleeker, with tinted windows and tires that barely made a sound. It stopped right in front of her stand. Amara stood up slowly. A tall man stepped out of the back seat. He wore a red kufi cap, a fitted black suit, and shoes so polished they reflected sunlight. He didn't smile. He didn't greet her. He walked straight up to her table and handed her a brown envelope. Amara stared at it, confused. "Excuse me. What is this?" she asked, holding it with both hands. The man didn't answer. His expression was calm, unreadable. He only said, "Read it, and don't tell anyone." Then he turned around, walked back to the car, and got in. Before Amara could say another word, the car glided away and disappeared. Around the corner, she looked left, she looked right. Nobody had seen anything. The street was strangely quiet. With trembling fingers, she opened the envelope. Inside was one sheet of paper, plain white, folded. She unfolded it slowly. There were just a few typed words on it. "Come to King Line Hotel by 4 p.m. Do not tell anyone. From a friend." Amara's lips parted, but no words came out. Her fingers shook. Her heart pounded so loud she could hear it in her ears. "King Lane Hotel?" she whispered. "But I've never even been to a hotel before." She read the message again. "A friend?" she murmured. She looked up and down the street again. The car was gone. The man, a stranger. The note, mysterious. She clutched the envelope to her chest and looked up at the sky. Dark clouds were gathering, but not just in the sky. Something heavy was brewing in her soul. Still, she knew one thing. She had to go. By 3:30 p.m., Amara stood outside her food stall. The brown envelope was clutched tightly in her hand. She took a deep breath. Then she locked the wooden door, turned the key once, twice, and whispered, "God, please walk with me." She waved down a passing tricycle. "King Line Hotel," she said to the driver. As they weaved through the streets of South Dallas, Amara's palms stayed sweaty against the envelope. Her eyes stared out the window, but her mind was racing. Who sent that letter? Was it Uncle Red? Was he okay? She didn't know. But something deep in her chest told her. This was no ordinary day. After 20 minutes, the tricycle pulled up in front of King Line Hotel. Amara stepped out and gasped. The building was massive. Glass windows shimmered like diamonds. The white walls shone under the afternoon sun. The doors were huge, polished and gold-framed. Everything looked too rich, too clean, too unreal. She had never seen a place like this. 2 uniformed security guards stood at the gate. One wore dark sunglasses. He stepped forward as Amara approached. "Good afternoon, ma'am," he said. "Who are you here to see?" Amara opened her mouth. Her voice cracked. I got this letter." She pulled the paper from the envelope. It said to come here. "My name is Amara." The guard took the paper and glanced at it. Then he smiled, gently. "Ah, Miss Amara, someone's waiting for you inside." Right then, a man in a black suit appeared through the front glass doors. He walked toward her without saying a word. "Come with me, please," he said, then turned and began walking. Amara followed. Her legs felt like jelly. Her breath was shallow, but she kept walking. They moved through a long hallway, its marble floor shining under crystal chandeliers. Every step echoed. Amara tried not to stare at the artwork on the walls or the velvet chairs lined neatly along the corridor. At the end, the man stopped in front of a tall brown double door. He turned and looked at her. Someone's waiting inside. Amara's heart thumped louder. She looked at the door, then at him. "Can I go in now?" she asked softly. He nodded once. "Yes, you're safe." Amara took a deep breath. Then she pushed open the door. Her eyes landed on a man in a wheelchair, seated in the middle of the luxurious room. She froze. Her mouth fell open. Her hand shook. "Uncle Red?" she gasped, her hand rising to her chest. But this man, he didn't look anything like the crippled beggar from the street. His hair was neatly trimmed. His face was clean-shaven and glowing. He wore a crisp, white shirt with gold buttons and a diamond-studded watch on his wrist. Even his wheelchair was different, sleek, polished, high-tech. He didn't look tired or weak. He looked powerful. He looked wealthy. Then he smiled. "Amara," he said, softly. "Come in." Amara didn't move. She stared, blinked. "Uncle Red, is that really you?" she whispered. The man nodded. "Yes, it's me." He motioned toward the chair across from him. "Please, sit." Amara walked slowly to the chair and lowered herself, still staring at him like she was dreaming. The man exhaled gently. "My name is not Uncle Red." Amara blinked. "It's not?" He nodded. "My real name is Raymond Blackwell." Amara's brows pulled together. "Raymond?" He smiled kindly. "Yes, I'm a billionaire." Amara sat frozen in the plush leather chair, still trying to process the words she'd just heard. Billionaire. She looked at the man across from her, the man she once saw wrapped in rags and bandages, eating from a cracked plastic bowl. He sat tall in his sleek wheelchair now. His white shirt shone against his deep brown skin, and gold buttons gleamed under the soft chandelier lights. Her voice came out in a whisper. You're a billionaire?" Raymond Blackwell nodded. "Yes. I own businesses all across Texas and Louisiana. I've built hospitals, schools, even funded scholarships. I've made more money than I ever imagined." Amara's head was spinning. She blinked at him, stunned. "But why were you on the street? Why did you pretend to be crippled and homeless?" Raymond's smile faded slightly. He leaned forward, his voice lower, more serious. "I got tired, Amara. Tired of people being kind only when it benefits them. Tired of fake smiles and shallow hearts. I wanted to see something real. I needed to know if there were still people in this world who did good when no one was watching." Amara's lips parted, but no sound came. Raymond continued, "So every year, I choose 10 cities, 10 places. I disguise myself as an old man, a sick man, a forgotten man, and I wait." Her eyes began to glisten. You do this every year?" He nodded. "To find people like you?" Amara's chest felt heavy. "But I didn't do it because of all this," she said, motioning to the luxurious room. "I never even imagined," Raymond interrupted gently. "That's why I chose you." He looked her straight in the eyes. "You gave me food when you had almost nothing. You gave it with a smile. You never asked for anything in return. You didn't laugh. You didn't turn your face like others. You treated me like I mattered." He paused, his voice softening. "People like you deserve the world." A tear rolled down Amara's cheek. She quickly wiped it away. "This is too much. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Raymond said. "Your kindness already spoke for you." Then something happened that made her gasp. Raymond placed both hands firmly on the arms of the wheelchair. Amara leaned forward watching, and slowly. He stood up, her mouth dropped open. She jumped to her feet. You can walk?" she asked, stunned. He gave a small nod. "Yes." "I can." She took a step back, staring at him like he was a ghost. But why stay in that chair? Why act like... Raymond looked into her eyes with sincerity. Because I needed to know who would care for me, even when I looked broken. I wanted to know who saw a man, not just a mess. Amara's lips trembled. I didn't help you because I wanted anything, she said in a shaky voice. I didn't know who you were, I just knew it was the right thing to do. Raymond stepped closer. His tone was calm but filled with warmth. That's exactly why I chose you. He stood quietly for a long moment, then said, Amara, come with me. I have something to show you. Her eyes widened slightly. Show me... What? Raymond gave a mysterious smile. A gift. A reward. A place where your kindness will live on. Amara stood slowly. Her heart raced, but her feet moved. He opened the door and she followed. Outside, 2 men in dark suits were waiting. They nodded respectfully at Raymond and stepped aside. Amara's eyes scanned the luxurious hallway again, her senses on overload. Her slippers tapped softly against the polished floors. She kept glancing at the back of Raymond's crisp white shirt. Then they stepped outside, and what she saw made her breath hitch. 5 black SUVs lined the hotel driveway, sleek, massive, shining like obsidian under the fading sun. Security men in tailored suits stood next to each one. It looked like a scene from a movie. Raymond walked to the first car. A guard opened the back door. Then he turned back and smiled at her. Come on, Amara. She hesitated, then stepped inside. As soon as her door closed, the other 4 vehicles followed. The convoy glided out of the hotel gates and into the city. 5 long shadows moving like royalty. Amara sat beside Raymond in stunned silence, her heart thudding. Where is he taking me? The car turned left, then right, winding through South Dallas and out toward the city's quieter edge. Trees lined the road. The noise faded. 30 minutes passed. Then the SUV turned onto a paved, clean road. Amara looked out the window. Every building on the block looked new. Glass fronts, shining signs, fresh paint. It felt like a whole new world. Then the car stopped. Raymond stepped out first. A guard quickly opened Amara's door. She stepped out and gasped. Right in front of her stood a massive, luxurious restaurant. It wasn't a shop. It wasn't a stall. It was a palace for food lovers. Tall glass walls reflected the sky. The name on the huge sign above the door made her heart stop. Amara's Place, home of sweet meals. Her hands flew to her mouth. She blinked. Looked again. It was real. Is this really... Raymond nodded softly. Yes. It's yours. Amara stood frozen. She stared up at the tall sign, her name shining in gold letters against a black background. Amara's Place, home of sweet meals. She blinked again. Tears filled her eyes. This is real? She whispered, her voice trembling. Raymond smiled, warm and gentle. Yes. It's yours. Mine? She echoed, like she didn't believe the word coming from her own lips. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small silver keyring. A golden logo of a cooking pot dangled from it. He held it out to her. Go inside. Her hands were shaking. As she took the keys, she walked slowly up the 3 white steps. Her fingers hovered over the golden handles. Then she pushed the glass doors open, and what she saw inside made her take 2 steps back. Her hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes widened. It was breathtaking. The floors sparkled with white marble. The walls were painted soft cream with golden trim. Lights dangled from the high ceiling like stars twinkling against the crystal chandeliers. Each dining table looked like glass fused with gold, and the plush leather chairs were stitched with her initials. AP elegant music played softly in the background, soft saxophone and smooth piano, just like the old records her father used to play. The air smelled like lavender and spice. Raymond walked in beside her, smiling at her awestruck face. There's more, he said softly. Amara followed him past the dining room and into the kitchen, and nearly burst into tears again. It was a chef's dream. Gas cookers lined the back wall. Commercial ovens gleamed. Brand new pots, pans, deep fryers, blenders, and walk-in freezers stood neatly in place. Even the workers' uniforms were folded on a shelf. Neat white coats with her logo embroidered on the chest. Amara turned in slow circles, taking in everything. Her throat tightened. She turned back to Raymond, her eyes full of tears. "You bought all this? For me?" Raymond nodded slowly. "You fed me from your little when you had almost nothing. Now I want you to feed kings and queens. In your own palace." Amara couldn't speak. She sank to her knees right there on the clean marble floor. Her hands covered her face. Her shoulders shook. She was crying. Not from sadness. Not even from shock. But from a kind of joy that comes only once in a lifetime. I don't know what to say," she whispered. Raymond knelt beside her. His voice was low, steady. "You don't have to say a word, Amara. Your kindness already said it for you." From that day forward, everything changed. Amara became the proud owner of one of the finest restaurants in Dallas. Her days of cooking over charcoal and dodging rain under her tin roof shack were over. Now she sat in her second-floor office, with her name etched on the glass door. A framed photo of her smiling outside the old roadside stall hung proudly on her wall, a reminder of where she'd come from. The restaurant buzzed with life. People from all over the city came to eat at Amara's place, some just to meet her, others just to say thank you. But Amara never forgot the feeling of emptiness, of not being seen. She didn't cook anymore. She didn't serve food. Her kitchen had trained chefs in white hats. Her waitstaff wore custom uniforms and moved like they were gliding. Soft jazz filled the air. Every customer left feeling like royalty. And yet, through it all, Amara's heart stayed grounded. She never forgot Uncle Red. She never forgot the streets that raised her, the kindness that guided her, or the hands. She used to feed when she had little. One morning her manager knocked on her office door. "Ma'am," he said, poking his head in, "the food truck is ready." Amara stood up from her desk. "Let's go." Outside, parked beside the sleek restaurant, was a giant white van. It had a colorful mural painted across it, showing smiling faces, steaming pots, and her logo with bold letters, Amara's Food Love, feeding the hungry every week. That truck rolled through neighborhoods that were forgotten, under bridges, behind bus stops, outside markets. They gave out free hot meals to anyone who needed it. And Amara? She never missed a day. She walked right up to each person in line. Barefoot kids, old men in ragged coats, mothers holding babies, and handed them warm food herself. "Eat well," she said gently. "You're not forgotten." One of her volunteers leaned toward her and whispered, "Ma'am, why do you do this? After all you've built?" Amara smiled. She touched her heart. "Because kindness brought me here," she said. "And now, I send kindness back out." The sun was rising. Golden rays fell on her face as people laughed, clutched their plates, and ate in peace. Amara turned her face toward the sky and whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Raymond Blackwell. Thank you for seeing me." Then she climbed back into the van, ready to feed the next street. Her life had changed forever, but her soul stayed the same. Amara still couldn't believe it. Even as she walked, back through the shining marble floors of her new restaurant, her name stitched on chef uniforms, printed on the glassware, glowing on the wall in gold, her heart felt like it hadn't caught up with reality. She walked slowly through the dining area again, her fingers trailing across the polished tabletops. She paused to admire the way the sun lit the curtains, casting golden shadows across the soft tan walls. She had never imagined she'd walk into a place like this, let alone own it. Raymond walked beside her quietly, letting her take it all. "In you okay?" he asked gently. Amara nodded, but her voice trembled. "It's just, everything happened so fast. Yesterday I was cooking beans over charcoal. Now I'm here." Raymond smiled. "You didn't ask for this, but you earned it more than anyone I've met." They stepped into a glass office on the second floor, The view overlooked the dining hall below. On the office door, Amara Johnson, founder and CEO. Inside, the walls were decorated with framed photos. One of her smiling beside her old food stall, one of her handing food to Uncle Red, and another of her holding the key to the restaurant. There was even a small plaque on the desk, "Kindness builds kingdoms." Amara touched the frame of her old photo, her in a headscarf holding a spoon, grinning through the steam of a boiling pot. She blinked, fighting tears. "Raymond." He looked up. "You know, that little wooden stall I had? It didn't have lights. I used to cook with a lantern after dark. My hands would blister from cutting onions too fast just to keep up." Raymond listened silently. She continued. "But even when I was tired, I tried to smile. Tried to make people feel welcome, because that's all I had. A warm plate and a warm heart." Raymond's voice was soft. "And that's all I ever needed to see." The next few days were a blur. Professional chefs arrived. The head cook, a tall black woman named Chef Keisha, had worked at luxury hotels in Atlanta. She ran the kitchen like a queen, firm, fast, but full of respect. Uniformed waiters were trained to greet every guest like family. A pianist played soft jazz on weekends. The menu had classics like spicy gumbo, sweet yam casserole, honey-fried catfish, and peach cobbler. But in the center of it all was Amara. Even when she wasn't cooking, she knew every recipe by heart. She remembered the exact balance of pepper and garlic that made folks come back for more. Every day she checked on the kitchen. She smiled at customers. She welcomed each staff member by name. And upstairs in her office, she began to dream bigger. She kept the lights on after hours, not for work, but for prayer. Gratitude. She never once forgot how it started. One evening, Raymond visited again. He walked in, no wheelchair this time, just a clean navy blue suit, polished shoes, and that calm air of strength. Amara rose to greet him. "I was just thinking about you," he smiled. "I've been watching from a distance. You're doing better than I ever imagined." Amara laughed lightly. "I still don't know if I belong here. Some nights I wake up and think I'm back in that small room behind the stall." Raymond nodded. "That's good. Stay close to that memory. But never forget, you were born for greater." She looked down for a moment. "I just don't want to lose the part of me that gave even when I didn't have." He looked at her with pride. "That's why you never will." Then he stepped closer. "There's one more thing. Amara." She raised her brows. Raymond handed her a sleek black binder. She opened it slowly. Inside were documents, titles, ownership papers, financial accounts, everything naming her as the sole owner of the restaurant. She stared at the page. "Raymond, this whole time I thought maybe I was just managing it for you." He shook, his head firmly. "No, this isn't mine. It's yours. I gave it, and I meant it." Her hand covered her mouth. She blinked away tears again, overwhelmed all over. Raymond extended his hand. Amara stood, looked him in the eye, and shook it, and firmly. In that handshake was a silent promise. She wouldn't waste a single moment. Weeks passed, then months, and with each passing day, Amara's place grew more than just in profit. It grew in reputation. What had started as a gift became a pillar in the heart of Dallas. Celebrities came to eat her peach cobbler. Business people booked private dinners. Local news stations featured her story. From sidewalk to CEO. One headline read. But Amara never let the cameras define her. Her spirit remained as grounded as her hands once were, mixing spices, serving strangers, smiling through exhaustion. Now she walked through the restaurant's marble-floored dining hall like a queen in sneakers, checking on guests, fixing a tilted napkin, whispering encouragement to a nervous new waitress. Her community began calling her the kind cook, even though she hadn't touched a cooking pot in months. But what they didn't know was, she still visited her old stall every Sunday evening, not to cook, just to stand, to remember. One day, her assistant manager Darnell, a sharp young man with a high fade and clean bow tie, rushed into her office. "Ma'am, the mayor's on line 1. Amara, who was sipping hibiscus tea by the window, raised an eyebrow. "The mayor?" "Yes, ma'am. They want to honor you at the City Hall Gala next month. Said you're an example of black excellence and community transformation." Amara chuckled softly and shook her head. "Darnell, I used to sleep behind a food stall. The only transformation I know is turning onions and broth into something warm." Darnell grinned. "Exactly why they want to honor you." But despite the fame, the articles and the VIPs, Amara's soul stayed rooted. She began hosting free business classes on weekends, helping young black women learn how to budget, manage vendors, and build brands from nothing. She started scholarships for single mothers. She partnered with a local culinary school to hire students from low-income families, and she made one promise to her staff that echoed like scripture. "If you're ever hungry, come here first, not just for food, but for hope." Her chefs called her Chef Mama, though she no longer held a spoon. Her staff celebrated her birthday like a national holiday, and in every corner of the kitchen, someone had taped this quote on the wall. She fed a man who couldn't walk, and now she helps a city stand. But Amara, she still dreamed bigger. She began drawing plans for a second location in Atlanta. One night, while reviewing the design mock-ups in her office, she paused and stared at the photo of Uncle Red, still framed on her desk. She whispered, "To the empty room, you didn't just give me a restaurant. You gave me purpose." And in her heart, she made a vow. "As long as I have breath, no hungry soul will go unnoticed under my watch." It was early morning. The sun hadn't fully risen, but Amara was already standing outside the back of her restaurant, dressed in jeans, sneakers, and a branded hoodie that read, "Amara's Food Love, Feeding the Hungry." Behind her sat a gleaming white food truck parked and ready to roll. It wasn't just a truck, it was a mission on wheels, wrapped in art showing black families smiling, holding steaming bowls, hugging each other in line. And above the mural, painted in bold red letters, "Kindness fed me, now I feed others." The doors swung open. Inside, hot pots bubbled with collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread, and fried okra, all freshly cooked by her team of volunteer chefs. Amara climbed aboard, tied her apron, and adjusted her cap. Her manager peeked through the window. "We ready, boss?" Amara nodded. "Let's go feed the streets." That day, the truck rolled down every avenue of South Dallas. They parked under freeway bridges, in front of homeless shelters, near parks where struggling families huddled together, at bus stops where elders sat quietly, waiting. People lined, up behind barefoot kids, tired mothers, elderly men pushing carts. No one asked questions, no one needed money, just open hands, Mo, and open hearts. And Amara greeted every single one, with a plate, with a smile, with a word of comfort. "Here, baby, eat well. You matter, Grandpa, we see you. You're not alone, sis, come back anytime." One of her youngest volunteers, a high schooler named Jamal, whispered while serving cornbread, "Miss Amara, why you do all this yourself? You a millionaire, you could just hire people." Amara looked at him. Her voice was quiet, but strong. "I was one of them, Jamal. And if it wasn't for one man, one broken man in a wheelchair who turned out to be a billionaire in disguise, I'd still be sleeping behind a shack hoping my rice didn't burn." Jamal blinked. "You talking about that Uncle Red dude?" Amara smiled. "Yeah, but he wasn't just Uncle Red. He was Mr. Raymond Blackwell. And he didn't just give me a business. He gave me a reason to keep giving." She paused, staring at the line of people ahead. "Kindness saved my life, now I use it to feed the city." That afternoon, they served nearly 300 people. They packed up quietly after sundown. As the van rolled back toward the restaurant, Amara sat by the window, her eyes glazed with memory. She thought of her small wooden stall, of her patched-up slippers, of her cracked plastic bowl, of the way Uncle Red had looked at her when she'd handed him food, not like a beggar but like a man who had been seen. Her chest tightened. She whispered, so soft only she could hear, "Thank you, Mr. Raymond, for seeing me, for believing in who I was, not just what I looked like. Back at the restaurant, Amara stepped down from the van. The sky was turning gold. She turned back one last time, looked at the painted mural on the truck. Her hand reached out and brushed the words again. Kindness fed me. Now I feed others. Then, she smiled, turned around, and walked inside to plan the next street. This story teaches a timeless truth. Kindness is never wasted. You may not have much, but if you give from a pure heart, when no one is watching, when there's nothing to gain, one day your reward will arrive in a form you never imagined. Sometimes, disguised as a broken man in a wheelchair. Sometimes, disguised as your own destiny.